I found out my dad sold my childhood drawings as NFTs and made thousands without telling me. I was never a great artist as a kid. In fact, most of my drawings looked like awkward alien blobs that had no business being displayed on a fridge, let alone turned into anything valuable. But that never stopped my parents from encouraging me. My mom always said, "You're so creative, Alex." And my dad just chuckled and patted my head like I was a dog that had just learned to bark on command. Anyway, I hadn't thought about those childhood drawings in years. I'm 23 now, living in a tiny studio apartment in Denver, barely getting by as a freelance graphic designer. The irony, right? I draw for a living, but I can't afford half the things I need to make decent art. Then, a few weeks ago, I went home for my dad's birthday. He's always been a bit eccentric, big into investments of the future, like cryptocurrency, drones, and even a short-lived obsession with hydroponic strawberries. His latest obsession? NFTs. At least that's what I thought at the time. After the cake and awkward family photos, I crashed in my old room. It hadn't changed much. Same faded poster of Iron Man. Same bookshelf filled with Goosebumps novels I never finished. Out of boredom, I started poking around the closet, mostly looking for my old Game Boy, which I swear I left there years ago. Instead, I found a folder. Not a fancy one, just a cheap, black plastic folder with a sticker on the front that said, "Alex, Originals." I opened it, and inside were about 30 of my childhood drawings. Crayon sketches, weird watercolor splatters. One terrifying charcoal figure that I'm pretty sure was a failed attempt at drawing a horse. I laughed. I remembered some of them. A few were from first grade, others from summer camp. What struck me was that each one had a little number in the corner, written in pencil. 3, 14, 29. That was weird. I never numbered them. Curious, I took a photo of one and ran a reverse image search. Not expecting anything, honestly. But then there it was, my drawing, on OpenSea, listed under a user named Art by Costad. No joke. My misshapen cat astronaut was labeled as Childhood Wonder 14 and had sold for $1,200. I ran more searches. 3 had sold for $800. 7 was listed for $2,000 and already had bids. 29 had a sold tag $3,500. I stared at the screen for what felt like forever. It couldn't be anyone else. It was my dad. The username had his favorite weird pun in it, Ghost Dad. An old inside joke from when he snuck Halloween candy into our lunches. The wallet linked to a crypto account that had his initials in the address. My dad had been selling my childhood art as NFTs, without telling me, and had made thousands of dollars. I walked downstairs. He was watching golf, casually eating pistachios. I just stood there, folder in hand. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can we talk?" He muted the TV. "Sure, kiddo. Everything all right?" I threw the folder on the table. He looked at it, then looked at me. "Oh," he said, with this sheepish half smile. "You found those?" He didn't look surprised. Not guilty, just mildly awkward, like I'd caught him microwaving fish in the office kitchen. I stared at him. "You want to explain what the hell this is?" He sighed, leaning back into the couch like we were about to have a chat about the weather. "All right, listen, it's not as big of a deal as you think it is. Not as big of a dad you sold my drawings. Stuff I made when I was, like, 6. He raised a hand like he was calming a barking dog. "They're just digital versions. I still have the originals, see? Right there." He gestured at the folder on the table like it somehow proved his innocence. "I didn't throw them out. I didn't destroy anything. I just digitized them and listed them. That's how the NFT world works. You made money off of me. Without asking." He gave a half shrug. "You weren't doing anything with them." I blinked. "Because they were kids' drawings, Dad." He cracked a pistachio. "Exactly. That's the angle. Nostalgia. Authenticity. People eat that stuff up." He held up the pistachio shell like it was some sort of metaphor. "Raw. Real. It's what sells. People don't want AI art anymore. They want emotion. Childhood. Innocence." I sat down slowly, trying to process this. "How much did you make?" He hesitated. I repeated, louder. "How much?" He cleared his throat. "Close to $37,000, give or take." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. $37,000. That was more than I'd made in the last 2 years combined. "And you didn't think to, I don't know, cut me in on that?" He looked honestly confused. Cut you in? Alex, you were 6. You didn't even know what a Bitcoin was back then. These were my storage folders, my scan job, my listings, my marketing. I turned your macaroni-brained monsters into profit. You stole from me. He rolled his eyes. Don't be dramatic. I stood up. This is insane. He stood up too. You're acting like I robbed you. Come on, I'm your father, not some shady guy in an alley. I stepped closer. A shady guy in an alley wouldn't call it parenting when they steal from their kid. The room was tense. He grabbed a beer from the fridge, twisted the cap, and didn't look at me when he said, "You know what? Fine. I'll give you 10%. I laughed. Actually laughed. 10% of my own drawings. Gee, thanks, Dad. That's so generous. He narrowed his eyes. You're lucky I saved them at all. Most parents toss that stuff. I saw potential. I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed out, got in my car, and drove back to Denver in silence. No music. Just me and my growing rage. The next morning, I logged into OpenSea again. His profile was still there, still active. In fact, he had just listed Childhood Wonder 38, a drawing of a deformed duck I remember coloring in 2nd grade. It already had a bid for $600. That was the moment something in me snapped. He had played me like a fool, used my name, my art, my innocence, and didn't even have the decency to admit it was wrong. So I made a plan. Not just to confront him again, but to make sure everyone saw the truth. I spent the next few days preparing. I called out of work, stayed holed up in my apartment, and built something I hadn't made in years, a digital portfolio. Only this time, it wasn't of my art. It was of his theft. Screenshots of the NFT listings, timestamps, the OpenSea wallet linking back to his name, photos of the original drawings, some still stained with juice, from when I was a kid, alongside their glossy NFT counterparts selling for hundreds, even thousands. I dug through our old text messages and emails, looking for anything that might expose how long he had been doing this behind my back. And then I made a website, stolenchildhood.art. The homepage was simple. White background. My name at the top, and beneath it, my father stole my childhood artwork and sold it as NFTs for profit. Here's the full story. I uploaded everything, but that wasn't enough. I wanted people to see this, to understand the absurdity and cruelty of it. So I reached out to a local digital art gallery in Denver, a small space run by indie curators, mostly used for experimental showcases. I pitched them the story. I didn't expect much, but they loved it. They called it postmodern catharsis. Said it was commentary on both parental exploitation and the hollow commodification of nostalgia. I just called it justice. The exhibit was set to run one night, only a Friday, exactly a week from the day I found out. And to make sure the man himself would show up, I sent him a formal invitation. Hi, Dad. I've decided to enter the art world too. I'm holding an exhibit next Friday. Thought you might like to see what I've been working on. Love, Alex. I even included a private RSVP link. I wanted him there, front row. The night of the exhibit, the gallery was buzzing. Neon signs, lo-fi beats, free wine in plastic cups. My friends came. A few curious strangers came. One girl told me she thought this was the most savage thing she's seen since Shia LaBeouf paper bag stunt. And then, right on time, he walked in, wearing a blazer, trying to look casual, like he didn't know what was coming. He walked around the room slowly, looking at the framed screenshots, the blown-up drawings, the projection on the wall that scrolled through every single transaction he'd made, all tied to his crypto wallet. Then he saw the big print on the wall. He sold my innocence for Ethereum. I saw his jaw clench. He found me near the back, standing by a table that displayed the original drawings. "You think this is funny?" he asked. "No," I said. "I think it's sad, but at least now everyone else can see it too. You're blowing this way out of proportion." "Oh, really? $37,000 into proportionate enough?" People around us were starting to notice the tension. A woman snapped a photo. He leaned in close and said through gritted teeth, "You don't know what you're doing. You're embarrassing yourself." I smiled. "Then you better leave before someone asks for an autograph, Dad." He stormed out 10 minutes later. I stood there, wine in hand, surrounded by people asking questions, giving me nods of approval, telling me how brave this was. But honestly, I didn't feel brave. I felt empty. I thought revenge would make me feel better, like winning some kind of emotional lawsuit. Instead, All I had was the confirmation that my father was exactly who I feared he was, and I still had to live with that. The gallery night ended with more applause than I expected, more questions than I could answer, and more emotions than I was ready to process. People took selfies with the exhibit. Someone wrote a blog post about it the next day titled, "When Your Art is Daft." The NFT story that broke the internet's heart. I didn't go home that night. I crashed on a friend's couch. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing texts, DMs, emails, a couple of podcast invites, even a blue-check art critic asking if I'd do an interview. I didn't reply to any of them. The only message I opened was from my mom. "What the hell happened last night?" And beneath that, a forwarded message from him. "Our son has lost his mind. Tell him to take that garbage down before it ruins what's left of this family." I didn't respond, because as much as I hated what he did, as much as I needed to expose him, there was a deeper truth sinking in. He didn't just steal my art, he'd stolen my trust, my childhood, my relationship with both of my parents, and in return, I gave him shame. I spent that weekend in silence, just thinking, wondering if maybe, just maybe, I'd gone too far. That maybe some things should stay buried, no matter how wrong they feel. But then came Monday. I walked into work's small creative agency, mostly branding stuff, and my boss, Rebecca, was standing by the kitchenette. She waved me over. "I saw your name in the paper," she said, raising her coffee cup. That was wild. I braced myself. "Yeah, sorry if that causes any issues." She just laughed. "Alex, are you kidding? That was genius. You embarrassed the guy and turned it into a damn art statement. Our clients eat this stuff up." I blinked. "Wait, seriously? Seriously? We're pitching a social truth campaign next week. Guess who's now co-lead?" That moment was the first time in weeks I felt something good, not just the cold satisfaction of revenge, but an actual win. Like maybe, just maybe, something meaningful came out of the wreckage. But then the emails started coming, from his lawyer. The first was polite. "We respectfully request that the exhibit material be removed from public view immediately. Mr. Collins asserts his right to privacy and demands a cease and desist." The second was more aggressive. "Failure to comply will result in legal action for defamation, emotional distress, and reputational damage." And attached was a PDF with a list of damages. He claimed I'd cost him $45,000 in lost NFT sales, plus another 20 in potential gallery deals. That's when I knew. He didn't care about what he did, he cared about being caught. I sat at my laptop that night, rereading every email, trying to decide what to do. Then I opened Reddit, and I posted everything. Screenshots, exhibit photos, the legal threats, even a pixelated shot of one of the emails just to prove it wasn't fake. I didn't name him, I didn't need to. The internet has a way of connecting dots faster than lawyers can type. The post exploded. 300,000 upvotes, thousands of comments. Some called me a hero. Others said I was cruel. A few said I should have sued him first. But almost everyone agreed on one thing. This guy is the worst dad since Darth Vader. It became a meme. My childhood sketches were turned into ironic t-shirts. A clip of me from the exhibit was turned into a TikTok sound. One guy even made a YouTube edit of me walking away from the gallery in slow motion, with text that said, "When you publicly end your NFT dad's career." And I laughed. For the first time in weeks, I actually laughed. Because even if the lawyers came knocking, even if the website got taken down, the story was already out there. A week after my Reddit post went viral, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, then I listened to it, expecting a lawyer or maybe a pissed-off NFT bro. But it was my mom. "Alex, he's not doing well. Just call me." It was the kind of message that made me feel 12 years old again, like I'd gotten in trouble at school and was about to get grounded. But I wasn't 12 anymore, and this wasn't about skipping homework. I waited 3 more days before calling her back. She picked up immediately. "Alex, thank God." There was silence. Then she added, "He's in the hospital." My heart dropped. What happened? Stress, maybe. High blood pressure. He collapsed during a meeting. They're running tests. I didn't say anything, just stared at the wall. Then she said, "He keeps asking if you're coming." I almost laughed. Of course he was. He wanted to control the narrative again, turn himself into the victim, make me the prodigal son returning to his bedside to forgive everything. I told her I'd think about it. I didn't. Instead, I went back to the gallery. The exhibit was over, but the space was open for new work. I stood in the center of the room where my art once hung and felt hollow. A girl passed by and recognized me. "You're that guy, right? The NFT dad guy?" I nodded. She grinned. "Your story made me call my mom for the first time in 2 years. Thanks." And then she left. That was it. Not a big moment. Not a dramatic reunion. Just a stranger letting me know my mess might have helped clean up someone else. And weirdly, that meant more than any revenge. I didn't go to the hospital. Instead, I wrote a letter. Just a few paragraphs. "You lied to me. You stole from me. And you tried to gaslight me when I found out. I won't pretend we can just undo that with a hug in a white room. But I don't hate you. I just don't trust you anymore. And I don't need to." I sent it with a Polaroid of one of my childhood drawings, a space cowboy holding a flag that said, "Truth." It was the last thing I ever mailed him. Months passed. The internet moved on. News scandals. New memes. But I stayed busy. The gallery offered me a permanent residency. My agency gave me more creative freedom. And yeah, I started seeing someone. Her name's Riley. She doesn't care about crypto or internet drama. Just asks if I'm doing okay and actually waits for the answer. Sometimes I catch her sketching when she thinks I'm not looking. One night she asked me, "Would you ever talk to your dad again?" I thought about it, and then I said, "Maybe. But I'm not rushing it." Update 6 months later. He sent me a message. Not an email. Not a letter through lawyers. Just a simple handwritten note. "I saw one of your pieces in a coffee shop. It made me cry. I'm sorry." No signature. Just that. I didn't reply, not because I'm angry, but because, for once, I didn't need to. If you like this video, please subscribe for more.